better than anything else. You don't have to do it the best in the world, but what's your thing that you bring to the party? What's the thing that here's a great question. What do you find easy that other people find hard? It's interesting you talked about being shy when you were 16.
Yeah.
And yet you've lent into it to a degree where your whole life is putting people at ease and welcoming them and talking to them.
Yeah.
And you were nervous talking to a bank teller. Mm-hmm. I was entirely dyslexic as a kid. I couldn't read until I was about sort of 11. And I spend my life now reading autocue. I was so terrified of reading out loud in class.
How did you fix dyslexia? How does dyslexia manifest itself? Like,
I don't think it's a real thing.
Really?
Well, because you can't take a blood test for it. So it's just it's a way of thinking.
So what did you see when you said you couldn't read until you were 11? Like, what did you see?
When I write, so people, I think when you write, when most people write, they sort of just write the word. I need to think of every letter in the word as I write. And so as I read individual words. So I'm quite, I read pretty slowly even now, like compared to, I don't know what my reading age is, but it's definitely not commensurate with where I should be. But I managed to kind of game the system. You find your way around it.
Did you take lessons?
No. I mean, I got into Cambridge. I did very well academically.
Right, but how did you overcome?
You just basically, I figured out early on that pattern recognition thing of going, okay, I need to get A's in my A-levels, like whatever you call the end of school. I need to graduate with a whatever. I need to do very well. So I found the brightest guy in the school, and I said, can I read your essays? He said, yeah. I read what he'd done, and I didn't copy the essay, but I copied the structure. And so I kind of learned to go, okay, well, in academia, what do you need to do to kind of game the system? And how can I get around it? And it's just that thing you go, well, you have to, I think there's a fair bit of acceptance in it. You have to go, well, my mind works a bit differently to other people's. I'm not as gifted in that, so it's going to take me longer to read something.
What do they say what is dyslexia, like technically? Like when they give you a definition of it, like what's the root cause? Like Google dyslexia.
I'm looking all over.
I would Google it, but I wouldn't be able to spell it. I often get a thing like with spell check on my computer. It will just go,
Right. What are you trying to say?
I don't even know what you're shooting for there. Right. Give me a clue. Put it in a sentence.
Isn't that a beautiful thing, though, that you do get that little red squiggly line under your words? Like, I mean, oh, thank goodness.
I say I wrote a book. I co-wrote a book.
Yeah,
with
Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without spell check, it's not anything. What the hell is this?
Yeah, for sure. But it's oftentimes where when I'm typing a text.
Learning disability, yeah. I was in like special ed till I was all the way through sort of primary school.
It happens because of disruptions in how your brain processes writing so you can understand it. Most people learn they have dyslexia during childhood, and it's typically a lifelong issue. This form of dyslexia is also known as developmental dyslexia. Dyslexia falls under the umbrella of specific learning disorder. This disorder has three main subtypes: reading dyslexia, writing dysgraphia, and math dyscalculia.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's one of those things where I don't think that's helpful. For me, I don't think it's helpful I don't think the label ever helped me. I remember getting like properly diagnosed at university just so I could get a free laptop. And they would give you an extra half an hour in the exam. But like, my written word I'm not great at cursive.
So it's interesting. The slowdown processing can affect everything that follows. That includes slowed reading because you have trouble processing and understanding words, difficulties with writing and spelling, problems with how you store words and their meanings in your memory, trouble forming sentences to communicate more complex ideas. Dyslexia is uncommon overall, but widespread enough to be well known. 7% of the population worldwide.
I'd say that's pretty widespread.
Yeah, it's pretty widespread.
Yeah.
May affect up to 20% of the people worldwide.
Yeah. Well,
what causes it? Okay, what's the symptoms?
Hang on, what we got?
Genetics. That's highly genetic and runs in families.
It's all genetic, isn't it?
That's a good point. Like, I wonder what it is about genetics that would cause it. A child with one parent with dyslexia has a 30 to 50% chance of inheriting it.
Well, I wonder what the advantage was. There's always a Darwinian advantage somewhere.
Well, it says if you have dyslexia, rather, you're neurodivergent. It means your brain formed or works differently than expected. Research shows that people with dyslexia have differences in brain structure, function, and chemistry. So a bunch of things that can happen. Infections, toxic exposures, and other events can disrupt fetal development and increase the odds of later development of dyslexia.
Oh, we did fine. Here's my thing. I don't think it's helpful to have. I mean, I went to, arguably the best university in the UK. I guess Oxford would have issues with that, but I think Cambridge was great and did very well academically. And it was hard. It was harder for me to do than it was for my friends that were just naturally gifted academically. But I really wanted that thing. And what was the driver to get that thing? Well, the driver was the humiliation of being in the special ed class and not being able to read out in class. And having, I remember my friend telling me the stories of what was happening in Lord of the Rings because I couldn't read it. So I was going, what happens? And being really excited by that. So that thing of like that poor kid feeling less than, going, well, I need to get this academic achievement to do something. So you going up to the bank teller shyly at 16, the gift that shy kid gave you was the drive for this. So it's all gratitude. It's all like, well, great. What are you motivated by? Yeah. Not everyone's motivated towards something. Sometimes it's just away from something. So if you grew up and you weren't wealthy as a kid, I mean, it was great for us because it was pre-internet. So I grew up in Slough and we didn't, have many foreign holidays. Fine. Didn't matter. My mother was fantastic and it was a great childhood. And I didn't have to look at everyone else's childhood on my phone. I didn't have to look at what everyone else had. I just knew the people around me and we were all kind of in the same boat. It's lovely. I kind of think that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
It's just
another
so
great
true.
quote.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And, you can, instead of having that experience, you can compare and be inspired. And that's just a switch that you have to make in your mind. And that's the difference between being jealous and envious, right? If you're envious, you can use that as fuel.
Disposition is more important than position. If you keep going back to kind of gratitude, like, okay, we're fine. It's you can kind of do anything.
Yes.
Because it's quite empowering as well. That thing of like, it's just a happy mood to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, you can choose to interface with life in a more positive way. And, sometimes people need things that happen to them, near-death experiences, tragedies, psychedelics, something that, like, snaps you out of this state.
Hey, woman, since your man ain't got no heart, why don't you go to my apartment tonight and I'll show you a real man?
There you go.
What? Fuck you.